Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to this meeting of North Sydney Council. Welcome all councillors who are present, members of the public who have joined us in the public gallery and those who are joining us online. Before we begin, I'll call on Councillor Carr to give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you. On behalf of those present and those watching on webcast, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, current, and emerging. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. We've received a request for a leave of absence from Councillor Welsh. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Berrigy, seconded by Councillor Santa. I'll put that to the meeting. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Are there any disclosures of interest for items on the agenda? No. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during meetings of the council. Councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media must leave the chamber to do so. That brings us to the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 28th of April. Is there a mover for the reception of the confirmation of the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Santa. Seconded by Councillor Carr. Any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? And those against? And that is carried unanimously. Councillors, we've had a request for a speaker for item 10.3, parking meter fees and service fee clarification. Is there a procedural motion? Councillor Berrigy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that we open the public forum to allow our speaker to speak on item 10.3 and bring that matter forward and then have the debate.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Antonini. I put that. All those in favour? Thank you. That does now bring us to item 10.3, parking meter fees and service fee clarification. There is one speaker registered, Simon Berry. Mr. Berry, if you would come forward to address council. Microphone. If you would give your name and where you're from.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak about this. My name's Simon Berry and I'm just speaking in relation to the parking meter fees report that's been put forward to discuss tonight. Firstly, what I'm seeking to do is ask that council refund the $300,000 plus in unlawful service fees that have been charged to customers since July 2024, a figure that I derive based on the usage that is put forward in the report tonight for ongoing fees that are being absorbed. Secondly, I'm hoping that council can put forward a clear position on whether it believes that the parking revenue collected during the period from July until now is legally compliant. While I welcome the move to absorb these surcharges moving forward, the report does not acknowledge that council has been in breach for nearly a year, and it makes no mention of remediation efforts for customers who have been forced to pay these unlawful fees. We don't need to debate whether the 8.25% surcharge that's currently being put forward is legal. That's already been clarified by the New South Wales government, and the draft guidelines put forward state what has always been the intent of Section 96(1), that the cost of administering a pay parking scheme are to be borne by council, not by users. The more serious and unaddressed issue is this. Under Section 93(3), a council is not entitled to provide or charge for parking if it fails to comply with the Transport for New South Wales guidelines. That means that council may not have had the legal authority to collect any parking revenue at all since July 2024, if this is to be true. That's not just the surcharge, that's the $8 to $10 million in parking revenue that council has collected based on the annual report in 2024. This risk has been completely omitted from the report to council this evening. If council chooses not to refund the $300,000 in known unlawful service fees, it undermines its position on compliance and leaves a broader issue, including the legal status of all parking revenue collected during this period, unaddressed and exposed to further scrutiny. This could have been avoided with stronger due diligence during the procurement process for the parking system, but you now have the opportunity to correct course. By choosing to publicly acknowledge the compliance risk to ratepayers and refund these fees council was never entitled to pass on, you can demonstrate fiscal responsibility, uphold the law and show the community that compliance matters more than convenience. Thanks.
Thank you. Just before you leave, are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Spencer?
Just in your proposal to refund the money, would you expect that that was done automatically and paid out to everyone, or could be on application if people felt that it was inappropriate, they could apply to the council?
Well, if it's feasibly possible to do so, I would ask that Orican facilitate that through the payment system that it does. But if it's not feasibly possible, then an application process would be fine, I think.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
participation.
Yes.
So we're bringing up that this item has been brought forward. Is there a motion so that we can open debate?
I'll move the recommendation.
We move the recommendation by councillor Berry, seconded by councillor Holding. Do you wish to speak to the item?
I will just briefly. Actually, and I have a question which for the acting chief executive. Could you just comment? My understanding is that as per the report, under section 96, as the supplemental payment options are an added function and not required for the administration, the function was not considered to fall under that section. Would you be able to comment on that in relation to what the speaker said, please?
Through you, Mayor Baker. So as noted, yes, in the report, the recently released paid parking guidelines seek to address that anomaly that is in there. So council believes it has complied with the paid parking guidelines, and the fees have been lawfully collected. However, others may express another opinion.
Thank you.
Do you wish now to speak?
Sorry.
Sorry, are they questions or speakers?
I'll save my right to reply.
Just speaking, yes.
Speaking, question or speaker? Speaking. Councillor Spencer, are you speaking or? Okay, well then you may wish to put your amendment now.
Thank you, Mayor. Propose an amendment that council staff produce a report justifying the position or explaining the position as to why it's lawful, and then potentially, if it is unlawful, look at ways to create a program where people can apply to have it refunded.
Well, is the mover prepared to take an item 5 on that a further report in relation to the matters raised by the speaker, effectively, in relation to the legality of the collection?
As a 5?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the seconder?
I'll second.
Well, it has to be seconded by the original.
the original.
Councillor Antonelli, you seconded. Yeah. So that's taken on, it becomes not in question. Okay. There were other speakers, now all the lights are off. So Councillor Holding, would you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this report on parking is welcome news. We hear much about the cost of living and costs in general, but here is an example of North City Council reacting quickly to both the benefits and constraints of emerging technology. The new parking, which was forced on all councils by the loss of the 3G network, led to the rapid implementation of wholesale change, which I know ruffled some feathers. Change like this is usually managed or phased in over time, and this in turn helps span the burden or cost of implementation while providing time for customers to learn the new methodology. In this case, there was no choice, and generally speaking, people have adapted well to the new systems. So it's pleasing to see our council be so swift and reactive to these guidelines, which were only issued by the state government in March of this year, with the consultation on that document ending just 10 days ago. Here we have a situation where the accountants out there might advocate for a delay in removing the current surcharges applied on the parking software or apps, but fairness is at the centre of this change. Council parking will be fixed at an expected price, no matter which payment methodology is used. While the council might feel the pain in the short term as we absorb the digital fees for operating the network, this system will be fairer and easier for parking and at less cost to the customer. The parking that we do have will be clearer and upfront about any charges. Flexible and clear payment can be made with customers only paying for the time that they use with no extra or unpredictable costs. I believe this will be welcome news and longer term should improve the turnover of parking spaces, hopefully result in less fines for overstayed parking and lead to more effective use of the parking which remains. Most importantly, these updated state guidelines remove further discussion or any sense of ambiguity about who should pay what. This is an important clarification.
Thank you. Could you turn off your microphone, Councillor Santa?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the motion, including the amendment. But while accepting the council's interpretation of our position of these user charges relative to Section 96 of the Road Transport Regulation, namely that the parking app is an added function designed to support the user with their parking and not required for the administration of the parking scheme, therefore they should not be considered to fall within Section 96(1). I have some sympathy for the objection to this view, given that this is not a voluntary component of the parking system, allowing the user to opt out of it if they wish. I believe that users have been required to pay the fee. Noting also that in the report, the staff estimate demand for this service and therefore council revenue will increase, I support option 2 as offered in the report, namely that council absorbs the service fee and does not increase our parking meter fees.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the amendment that Councillor Spenceley has put forward.
I just have to correct you, it's now the motion.
Okay, I support the motion that Councillor Spenceley has put forward. I would also like to express my disappointment in the hasty and expensive introduction of the new parking meters, which the community continues to find cumbersome to use. Perhaps if council didn't rush the decision to change the meters in the first place, it may not have cost council the 300K a year going forward. Thank you.
Turn off your microphone. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree, Councillor Carr, that if this decision wasn't made in haste, and as you all know, I'm not supportive of the new parking meters, and I thank the Speaker for coming in this evening and raising this to our attention, and I support the motion and particularly item 5 for the report. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could turn off your microphone. Are there any other speakers? Do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
I will briefly. Thank you, Mayor. Happy to have a further report. However, I would say that the parking meter issue actually stems from the fact that the previous agreement for parking meters, which adopted 3G technology at huge cost, did need to be replaced urgently, and that was taken, Councillor Keane, when you were in majority of council. So whilst we do have difficulties and rollouts are very difficult, just like traffic is difficult, as soon as the roads change, as soon as any traffic changes happen, we have teething problems. However, I have noticed very few complaints about the system, and I would like to thank the staff that any time a query is raised with me about the parking meters, that it's almost within 12-hour turnaround so that we can make sure that people are effectively using it. I don't think being negative about parking is very helpful, and I think if everybody a survey was put out, everybody'd say, let's have no paid parking. But we're in a revenue crisis thanks to decisions made in the former councils. And I would like to thank, like Councillor Holding said, thank the council staff for bringing this back so swiftly.
Thank you. I put the item, all those in favour, those against, and that is carried. Thank you. That then takes us back to the rest of the agenda. Is there a procedural motion to to move a number of items together. Councillor Berricky.
Thank you, Mayor. I propose to move item 10.1.
Oh,
You'd like to speak to that,
Okay.
councillor Santa? 10.2? Who wants to speak on the internal audit function? And 10.5.
oh, it's to speak.
Okay, so I'll just move.
Well, then I think we'll
Let's
just
go
go
to the
through the
agenda.
agenda. Okay, item 10.1. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Santa, seconded by Councillor Berricky. Councillor Santa, do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I urge the state government to ensure that any agreement with a bike share provider include a provision for incentivised parking at designated parking stations within specified areas, and that these stations incorporate bike share parking bays at which the usage cost can be entered at, say, a discount with an appropriate anchorage system for the bike at the station. This system has been adopted in Madrid and Hawaii, two cities that I'm aware of, and perhaps other cities around the world. A study of its effectiveness in Madrid has been undertaken and can be accessed on the web. This could help to prevent the dumping of bikes as obstacles or unsightly conglomerations in pedestrian areas, unsightly or unsafe. This method could be incorporated within existing, proposed and possible bike parking stations, such as those already established in the Crow's Nest and Victoria Cross metro stations, at heavy rail stations at St Leonards and North Sydney, as well as elsewhere in our LGA, including the CBD, North Sydney Oval, and the Neutral Bay and Crow's Nest shopping precincts, and appropriate spaces on the cycle paths themselves. A possible model we could explore is the one operating in Brisbane, with a bike share system currently operated by two companies, Lime and Beam, and which has more than 200 bike racks with, quote, e-mobility parking hubs, unquote. Details of the system operating in Brisbane are easily available on the Brisbane City Council's website. In supporting this motion, I would therefore recommend that council staff, in their discussions with the state government and bike share representatives, explore the possibility of establishing a parking station user bay incentive system to be incorporated in the bike share scheme, which is finally adopted for North Sydney.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried. That brings us to item 10.2, the internal audit function shared service agreement, moved by Councillor Berricky, seconded by Councillor Carr. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to 10.4, draft community engagement strategy. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Antonini, seconded by Councillor Santa. Is there any, Councillor Carr, you wish to speak? You brought it forward.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to say at the outset that I will be voting for this item to go forward for public consultation. As a standalone document, it is thorough and well constructed. And I'm hoping that this new document will guide council to embrace the following excerpts from the document, namely that community engagement and helps communities shape their own futures and informs the vision and direction of council. That's from the Office of Local Government. Community engagement is essential for building trust and understanding local needs, and therefore, hopefully, the CES encourages active participation to shape North Sydney's future. And communication for public consultation should use plain language and avoid jargon in communications, tailoring information to the needs of diverse audiences. Community consultation in the last few months that I have been a councillor has not been transparent, and community responses have been ignored or selectively used to support council's agenda. So I'm hoping this new document will be a catalyst for change, and North Sydney Council becomes a better listener and understands and acts on local needs. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on the item? Councillor Holding.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a council which has always been serious about community engagement and participation. We are one of the few local government areas with a community precinct system which has been active in North Sydney for well over 50 years. And this is just one avenue which should be further supplemented with a range of new strategies, formats and groups which ensure we are reaching beyond the established methods of communication and feedback. As always, this is a dialogue of not just what we are doing or hope to do, but what changes our community want to see. It's possible you might not agree with every proposal or change which is examined or put forward by others, but it is important that we have a demonstrated and fair format which stands as receptive to new ideas and thinking, and that these can be investigated and quantified in terms of justified demand, benefit and ongoing viability. This is a draft community engagement strategy and so can be informed by making comments online, emailing, a phone call, resolutions of precincts, or just an old-fashioned letter. Of all these avenues for feedback and information, it's the addition of 8 star committees, which is an exciting prospect. This will be a new model for engaging with different groups of people on different issues. Of course, the real benefit of these strategic advisory reference committees is that they are focused around issues and reach across the entire LGA rather than just specific geographical locations. It will be a new tool in an expanding range of methodologies to keep us informed on what, how and why people in North Sydney want to see our community grow and change. Perhaps the most encouraging aspect is a number of areas where young people will have an improved pathway to have their voice heard. Not only is this strategy a statutory requirement for our council, it's also the ideal time. The state government have ordained much greater housing density across our entire LGA, and there will be increased pressures and need to keep across the community view on impacts to our parks, young people, green space, paths, shops, businesses, roads, and commuting corridors. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. If you could turn off your, thank you, Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Carr. I'm hoping that this change and this strategy will change the way we are consulting with the residents of North Sydney, and I encourage the residents of North Sydney to look out for the consultation period and have their say.
Thank you. And if you two could turn off your microphone, does the mover, Councillor Antonini, wish to have a right of reply? No, I'll put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to the final item, 10.5. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Santa, seconded by Councillor Holding. Councillor Santa, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Noting the sad state of much council property, especially at the Stanton Library and the commercial property in Ridge and Miller Streets, for example, not to mention the state of the roof of this building, I hope we receive the necessary rate increases submitted to IPART, as well as undertaking the necessary repairs and maintenance to all the buildings for which we are responsible, but also to enable us to restore the funds which we on council previously approved to fund the education project at the coal loader with the digital wall component, along with other such projects. I therefore support the motion based on adoption of option 2 in the staff submission.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the item. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. And that brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you all for your participation this evening.
Madam Mayor.
I'll close the meeting now.
Didn't get through one more.
Measured time.